What's up, everybody? Welcome to podcast. Now, I'm Alex. I'm once again joined by Tyler. In this video, we want to discuss some comments talked about by Moff Gideon's actor, Giancarlo Esposito. So again, this is Moff Gideon in The Mandalorian. He was at a fan expo. He had some comments about lightsaber action. We'll read you the quote that he was saying and kind of talk about how we believe this is even more evidence to suggest Ahsoka is coming. We've talked about Ahsoka quite a bit on this channel. Tyler and I both said, this is the year for Ahsoka. Lots of stuff going on. Tyler's going to mention that. So I'm going to read really quickly what he said. I'm going to hand it over to Tyler to discuss how we can kind of put all of these pieces together. So speaking at comicbook.com, Esposito said a Vancouver Fan Expo that his character will be in a bit of a struggle with someone else in Season 2, which I'm hoping you will enjoy. He added there will be major, epic lightsaber action happening on the show. So there's a lot, even just that, there is a lot to go over in terms of what he actually means by lightsaber action. Does he know the difference between the lightsaber and the dark saber that, his character possesses? So I'm going to hand it over to Tyler to, again, kind of put everything together.
So before I even really start to throw character names in there, we have to set the stage. So you got to remember, and we've talked about this before, that they're going to be creating, and now there's actually evidence of this, with the new, the Star Wars, the High Republic news that came out about that, that Project Luminous, which, a cool era. Not really thrilled about like the books and all that, but cool era. Why does that matter? Well, because all of those books and the comics and all that, they're all going to be kind of like interconnected. So why is that important? Because that was the rumor that, like, going forward, Star Wars is going to be a very heavily interconnected, I guess you could call it like series or franchise or brand. I don't know. But if they're going to have it where, the books and the comics and all that, where basically characters and things that happen all will affect the other, the same will be happening for the movies and for the shows. Doesn't matter if it's animated or like live action. Like obviously the Clone Wars right now is animated. It's still canon, just like The Mandalorian is live action, but it's still canon. All of those characters, Ahsoka, all of them, they are canon characters. They can appear as live action characters. So that's very important to remember. It's all interconnected now. You're going to start seeing crossover stuff. We predicted that a couple of weeks ago, and now we kind of have more evidence of that. And this quote that this Esposito says about the lightsaber, and then he talks about a dark saber too, kind of goes into that theory as to why I believe that Ahsoka, and probably Sabine as well, will make an appearance on The Mandalorian Season 2. Now, Star Wars Rebels, that ends after, or really it ends after the Battle of Endor, Return of the Jedi, Empire is defeated. Sabine and Ahsoka are going to go off to find Ezra, the main character of Star Wars Rebels. So they are alive during the time period of The Mandalorian because that takes place after Return of the Jedi. So again, we know that Sabine had the darksaber. Now this main villain of The Mandalorian has the darksaber. Same time period. I would assume something happened with these two characters, and somehow he became in possession of the darksaber, taking it from Sabine. That would be my assumption. Obviously, we'll find that out. But this is how we have to break this down. So he talks about major, epic, which is funny that he talks that way. Lightsaber action happening on this show. And then he says, and I should mention that I'm the only character in the first season who was able to be honored with having that lightsaber. That tells me two things. That means somebody else will be having a lightsaber, because he was the first person to have it. Why would you say that if somebody else hasn't had it? Why would you say that? So obviously by saying that I'm the only character in this first season that was able to be honored with having it, tells me that somebody else is going to be having it as well, or at least a lightsaber. Now, when you say lightsaber action, this is my line of thinking. You might think differently, but let me explain. In my opinion, lightsaber action wouldn't be this main villain just cutting down a bunch of good guys. That's not, that is lightsaber action, but if it's like like laser blasts being shot at him. He's not a Jedi. He can't cut, like he doesn't have the Force as far as we know. He just kind of has this sword in a way, and it's the Darksaber. So I feel like that kind of means that there's going to be almost like a lightsaber duel of sorts. Now, yes, obviously you don't need to be a Jedi to have a lightsaber. We know that, which is exactly why he can use it. But really, the Darksaber isn't really a lightsaber, and he knows this. This is what's interesting. I think he made a little mistake when he was speaking. I think he kind of spoiled it without realizing it. So then he goes on to ask, or someone asks him about the child. Will the child wield the blade? And he said, basically anything is possible, and you keep watching. Because although the baby has some incredible power without having to wield the Darksaber, I think the baby is so curious about what this is. So he calls it wield the Darksaber. So he knows that there's a difference between a lightsaber and a Darksaber, which makes you wonder why he talked about lightsaber action earlier. Why wouldn't he say Darksaber action? Now, think of it this way. If you have props on set and you're on set and you read the script and there's literally no lightsabers whatsoever, just the Darksaber. Nowhere on the page is it going to say lightsaber. Nowhere with the props would there be a lightsaber. It would literally only be the Darksaber. He would only ever be in like scenarios, practicing fighting or whatever for this lightsaber action or this Darksaber action, whatever. He would never be against somebody with a lightsaber, because if it's only saying Darksaber on the script and what he's practicing and the props, if it's only a Darksaber, why would lightsaber even be in his brain? It wouldn't. It would only be Darksaber. So hopefully that makes kind of some sense, because he knows there's a difference. So the fact that he mentioned lightsaber action tells me that his brain kind of got the part that's in front, light dark. He got that a little mixed up just through speaking, which, that happens. Everybody does that. Everyone kind of misspeaks sometimes. The fact that he was talking about a saber, I just think he kind of made a mistake. But I think that mistake, it wasn't just a mistake. It was kind of like a spoiler in a way. I think it was on his brain that he's been doing this type of action, because he talks about that he has a commotion, a bit of a struggle with someone else. So is he going to be fighting somebody who's going to be trying to hit him with a laser pistol? I don't think so. So I definitely think that there's going to be somebody on Mandalorian Season 2 wielding a lightsaber while he's wielding a Darksaber. Now, I don't think it's going to be Luke Skywalker, because, it's possible, but I just don't think that's going to be happening, because I almost feel like that kind of ruins the show in a way. Because now you're introduced too big of a character. Not that Ahsoka's not too big, but I feel like if you bring in Luke, there's nothing really you can expand on with Luke. But if you bring in Ahsoka, which the rumor is, don't forget, that there's going to be an Ahsoka Sabine new animated show coming out in the fall of this year, 2020 as well, kind of parallel with The Mandalorian. Now that makes a little bit more sense. Now the year of Ahsoka makes a little bit more sense. And why would they do that? Well, because Clone Wars Season 7's out right now. Ahsoka is basically the main character of this season. What is she going to be dealing with in this Season 7? Well, heavily involved with the planet Mandalore. So isn't that interesting? She's dealing with the planet Mandalore and helping them. And this new, this main villain of The Mandalorian, he's got the Darksaber, which is very well tied to the planet Mandalore and the Mandalorians. And we have Sabine, who's a Rebels character that's going to be getting a sequel series. She's a Mandalorian, and she was in possession of that exact same Darksaber. Isn't that interesting how it all kind of connects? So I think it totally makes sense. In fact, I wouldn't even be surprised if they have some kind of scenario where, if this animated show is real, and I do believe it's real. I do believe that, Rebels 2 or whatever it's going to be called. I don't think it's going to be called Rebels. But the Ahsoka Sabine show, I do believe that's real. I do believe it's going to come out around the time of Mandalorian Season 2. It's going to take place during the exact same time period. And I wouldn't be shocked if certain events of one show affected the other show. Don't forget, Dave Filoni is part of both. So he'd be able to be like, yeah, okay, well, this is what we could literally work on it together. So when I'm writing something, you can say, oh, okay, that's a really cool idea. I'm going to take that. This is what's going to happen to our characters. And now this is, I just set up the stage for, the scenario or whatever could happen in your show. And like it goes back and forth. So why couldn't Ahsoka then appear, and Sabine appear? Maybe they're tracking that Darksaber down. Why couldn't they appear in The Mandalorian? Of course they could. And they all know Disney's not stupid, Lucasfilm's not stupid. They will want to have an Ahsoka live action show. That is likely what they're kind of setting up with all of this. I would not be shocked by having Ahsoka appear in The Mandalorian Season 2. That would make people, first of all, people who are not subscribers of Disney Plus would automatically subscribe. That are fans of Ahsoka. They would just be like, oh, okay, absolutely, I'm on. And then you already know that people are going to be saying, we need an Ahsoka movie or we need an Ahsoka show. Preferably, I would say, a show because it's actually more hours than a movie. And it's pretty much blockbuster or movie budget. So really, I think a show is better. But that's my opinion. But to keep this whole Ahsoka thing going, I feel like that's the best move. And it all makes sense. It all fits with the new plan for Star Wars, which is a good plan, to make everything that's out there, it's all interconnected. You can move characters one to the other. You could do that if you like, and one will affect the other and so forth. That's the new plan. That's what they're doing with the High Republic. I guarantee you they're going to do the same thing with the Mandalorian and all of these, anything surrounding it. I think, I had this little spark of an idea, but I think I'm onto something. I think Alex is onto something. The fact that he said lightsaber and then Darksaber later, that wasn't a correction. I think his brain just kind of slipped up. So the fact that there's going to be a lightsaber in The Mandalorian Season 2 kind of limits to how many characters. And is it really? Are they going to just make like a new character? I doubt it. It's going to be somebody that fans really like. So very interesting development. In my opinion, this is big news for Star Wars. That little quote, this little slip up is what I'm calling it. That's bigger news in my opinion than Project Luminous, because I think we're going to get really, really good things for the character that we all like. I really like Ahsoka myself, so I don't know. I'm feeling pretty good. I think 2020. I think I called it, and I think year of 2020 is going to be the year of Ahsoka, just like 2019 was the year of Baby Yoda.
For sure. I think, honestly, everything lines up just as Tyler said. And even more, things we can add on to that was last month. This is the last thing before we end the video. Last month, there was a rumored casting, basically, for Season 2. And in it, Chloe Bennett was listed from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Also, the person who played Iden Versio in the game Star Wars Battlefront 2. And when somebody tweeted at her to ask her about this, all she said is, you'll have to ask Mr. Dave Filoni. So she didn't deny it. Obviously, she didn't say, yeah, it's true. But it does add on that, Bosk was also on there. So that literally does show that if this was fan-made, then yeah, it was just their attempt to kind of bring in these characters from different comics, from different games, from all these different, eras. But then also, if it's not fake, then that just adds to the credibility that even, right on the casting, there would be these characters. But just like Tyler said, I think it makes a lot of sense. I do agree. I can see if you want to disagree with the whole lightsaber action, it is fair. But I agree with Tyler. I think when you say lightsaber action, I think of it as a duel. I know you could say, well, that's a lightsaber duel. But like the Vader scene in Rogue One, do you call that lightsaber action? I think people more or less just call it like a really epic like Vader scene, right? So I don't know if you would necessarily say that that's a lightsaber action-y moment. He uses it a little bit. He's actually using the Force for more than half the time. So something like that is something to keep in mind as well. But I think everything does definitely line up. And, again, it makes a lot of sense that Rosario Dawson, she had expressed interest about a month ago, early January, about playing a live-action Ahsoka. The age would line up, obviously, just how she looks. I think she would do a really amazing job. I think she's a pretty darn good actress. I think she would do a good job as Ahsoka. So things are definitely lining up, and I don't think we're too far away from actually getting an announcement. Within the next couple months, I would say we'd probably start start to get more information about this show just in general. So guys, let us know in the comments below. What do you think? Do you think Ahsoka will end up appearing in The Mandalorian Season 2? Do you agree with what we were saying? Do you disagree? Let us know in the comments below. Again, make sure you guys are subscribed to our YouTube channel podcast now. Hit the bell icon so you guys know when these videos go up, and we'll be covering The Mandalorian Season 2. Any news, any rumors, anything like that we get on the show, Tyler and I will absolutely be covering it here on the channel, and then we'll be covering it obviously when the show airs. Lots of Star Wars content all the time on the channel, as it is anyway. Okay, so thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you on the next video.